Mary Anglade. Welcome to your email marketing masterclass for builders and modular manufacturers. I want to take a moment to congratulate you for learning modern marketing practices. I'm always amazed when I see the types of marketing that home builders and those in related industries are doing when we have so many more modern and more efficient and cheaper ways of reaching people. So congratulations for being, one of the few who actually are taking the time to learn. Our agenda today, we will briefly have some introductions. I'll introduce myself in a little greater detail, my business, Builder Lead Marketing. We're going to talk a little bit about the customer's online journey. Why email? Is it even relevant? Is it growing? What are the benefits and drawbacks? We're going to get into kind of what your high level strategy could look like, building your list. We're going to start getting into the nitty gritty, what technologies are out there to help you, what to write, and common problems that can cost you money and make your email very ineffective. And we'll wrap it up with how do you measure it all and what are the key KPIs. Some housekeeping. We are recording this webinar. You can also find it on the Builder Lead Marketing YouTube channel. We'll be putting that up in a few days. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to reach me. This is my direct email. And we are holding monthly webinars reviewing the accelerated growth model. So please do join us. Last month, we did a deep dive on Facebook, and we're covering all aspects of marketing. So please connect with us. We are on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm going to give you a way to reach me there, YouTube. And if you stay connected with us, you'll find out about these opportunities. And if you know anyone else, please share. We really love sharing all these best practices and helping this industry grow. And on that note, next month is social media that sells. So last month, Facebook is the 800-pound gorilla. So we did a webinar just about Facebook. But next month, we're going to tackle Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and show you how you can use these platforms to grow your brand, grow awareness, actually end up with customer leads. And if you use your phone's camera, you can scan that QR code. It'll bring you to the sign up page so you can sign up for it. It's July 23rd at 2 o'clock. So who am I and why should you listen to me? I have over 25 years of marketing and general management experience. I've worked for very large corporations like ITT and large companies like Reader's Digest, Scholastic, as well as startups, as well as I've been on the board of a couple of nonprofits and worked for a nonprofit. 2012, I started my digital marketing agency, SparkGen Marketing, which is still in existence. That's our generalist agency, and we've worked with dozens of businesses across industries. A few years ago, we ended up with some home builder clients, and in particular, Modular. So they were using Modular in addition to stick building. And because we've now worked with many builders and home services, we wanted a brand that really spoke to those companies and those organizations. So started Builder Lead Marketing, which is our brand for that. And that was, I think, around October we finally launched it. We are associate members of the Modular Home Builders Association. I may have met you there while we were exhibiting, and we're also part of the Home Builders Association, and I am personally in the Professional Women in Building. So very much a part of the industry, and again, we have a lot of passion for it. My early career was in finance. I was a lender in New York City in the Garment Center, so I lent money primarily to very big fashion companies, and that's a tough business. So I really, learned how businesses make money, all about cash flow. And frankly, that's why most people are in business, right? They're for-profit ventures. And I bring that approach, and my agency, all of our team has that approach that it's really the results that matter. So we're very results focused, and we love digging into digital marketing results, which happen to be extremely measurable. So we're very transparent, and that's what really sets us apart in the industry. So we offer a few different programs. Foundations is for our smaller home builders and manufacturers. So it all starts with your website. We recommend a WordPress website. And sometimes we refresh a website. Occasionally, we don't have to do anything with the website, or we build you a new one. And then you have to drive traffic to your website. So foundations, usually we recommend at least one way. So it could be Google Ads, could be SEO, could be social media. The Accelerate program is for somebody that, really wants to accelerate their growth, and that usually employs all of those: social media, email, um, pay, Google Ads, and SEO. And then enterprises for our very large companies, and we do everything. We also offer some more custom offerings, like we recently redid a billboard. We have done trade show assets. So all of these things, are available. We also offer one-offs, like let's say you have a fully staffed marketing department, but you want somebody to do your Google ads. That's something that we could do for you. And we've been doing this since 2012. If before I get into the webinar, which should last about 45, 50 minutes or so, but you might be saying, well, you know what, really what I need is just some help. You can scan this QR code. We do reserve some time for discovery calls, and you can book some time with me or one of my staff, or you can also email me directly. And this QR code is throughout the webinar because we did want people to be able to just get help if they needed to. So you may see that as we move forward. So finally, this is a way to connect with me on LinkedIn. Scan this with your phone's camera. It will also take you to previous webinars on YouTube. And you can also download, we have a free ebook. So these are best practices in digital marketing for builders. So please do take advantage of that. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have been doing webinars on the accelerated growth model. So this is really an ecosystem of digital marketing, and when you put it all together, it's super powerful in driving growth. So as I mentioned, we've covered in these past webinars, paid search, SEO, social media. Today we're getting into database, so that's really email. How do you build your email database? How do you use email? And then, over on the right, of course, are your financial considerations. And then down on the bottom are sort of your building blocks of your brand, which in digital marketing, it's really your website is so important. So as I mentioned, you can check out those previous webinars and stay in touch with us because we'll keep going for the rest of the year. We do this monthly. So let's talk about the target and buyer behavior today. I don't think you can really have a marketing conversation without really thinking about who are you serving. So please take a moment. This is meant to be a thought exercise as well, but think about who your target is. I realize I may have people in related, not just builders, but related businesses. But regardless, I think anything having to do with your home has a certain level of emotion to it. It's usually going to cost you some money. If you're even trying to do some plumbing, trying to put on a new roof, maybe going to hire somebody to help you, get organized. And clearly, if you're building somebody a home, that is going to be likely the largest financial and emotional decision they're going to make in their lifetime. So the reality is, and you'll see why in a few of these upcoming slides, you really need a polished professional online image. And regardless of who you're dealing with, you might be dealing with people who maybe don't have large incomes, but they're more on the affordable side. They're trying to, buy their first home, and housing is so expensive anymore. So they probably need to have at least some means. Or maybe you're dealing with people who have acquired a lot of wealth. They want to build a second home or, a home for retirement. Um, you know, I will say those two targets are probably quite different. So you're going to want to think about what do I need to really have in my message that resonates with maybe the age, the psychographics. I mean, these people probably go on very different vacations, drive different cars, and we recommend even coming up with an avatar. So somebody that really represents your key target. And if you deal with more than one target, you should have a couple of or however many avatars you need to do so. So the National Association of Realtors does this survey, and basically 97% of uh, people searching for homes use the internet. And I think what's striking is this last bar because even set people over the age of 75, 87% of them use the internet. So the internet is no longer like for kids, and you think older people really want print or something. That's really not true. Everybody is using the internet. At this point, it is not, a new platform. And furthermore, Americans are online like all the time, on average 7 hours a day. The one thing I will point out, because I find that people in the home building and related industries, their jobs often have them out. They're in the field, they're talking to clients, they're visiting suppliers. They're not online all day, but usually many of their prospects and clients are. So if you're selling to lawyers, to business people, those people are in offices, or even if they're working from home now, they are online all day. And since this particular presentation is about email, 99% of email users, which is probably pretty much everybody who uses the internet, check their email every day, and some even check it 20 times a day. So this may not represent your own personal, but I think it's important. And if you want to read the article, there's a lot of other interesting stats. This one is from Fortune magazine, March 6, 2024. So here is just an example. Again, I think you have to realize that people are online and they're online in different ways. So here is a potential, avatar family. They've outgrown their home. They both work. They have means. They have spoken to their real estate agent, but there's not much on the market, which is so true of so much of the United States. So, Tammy, her name is Tammy. She starts looking online. So she goes on Google. She saw a friend of hers on Facebook just recently built a house. She's a little worried about that. Sounds kind of overwhelming, but she starts doing some research. She finds a local builder. She signs up for his newsletter. So, one, this is very realistic. Most of us do have Facebook accounts. We use email, we use Google, certainly for something that requires any, major dollars, we're going to do our research. So the question for you is, how are they finding you? What does your Facebook profile look like? Have you posted recently, or is it just out there with old content? Are you showing up the way you want to be? I think, unfortunately, sometimes people build these gorgeous homes, but you'll go to their website and they'll have homes that the photos are very dark. The website hasn't been professionally designed. So that makes somebody, have a level of distrust. That's not what you want, right? You want to have a great image. I'm sure everyone's parents told them at one time or another, you only have one chance to make a first impression. And that is really true. So you want to give them that great first impression. So, a few key takeaways: your clients and prospects are online, even if you're not. They're spending hours online, especially if they're professionals. They're using the internet to search, and that's true of all ages, not just kids. Usually, there's multiple channels that they're looking at: social media, email, Google. And at the end of the day, you really want to make sure your image is professional. And also, like if your clients are on Facebook, you want to go where the people are. You want to be there too, right? So now there's a lot to be said about Facebook. I encourage you to watch our last webinar if you missed it, because it's not as simple as that. But you do want to think about go where the people are. They're not necessarily going to find you. We don't use the yellow pages anymore. I personally throw out most of my mail, and I don't think I'm that unusual. People are more and more in a digital environment. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of email. The first question is email a dinosaur? I think most people don't really even think about email anymore. And in fact, for all the builders that we work with, I can't think of anybody who came to us and said they wanted us to help them with email. Usually it's something we end up doing. So, and that's actually too bad, as I will show you. But first, let's get into a few background stats. Okay, so yes, email's been around for a long time, 1971. So that said, it is growing. We are projected to have over 376 billion emails a day by the end of this year. Even though it was invented a long time ago, it was actually part of a research project for the Department of Defense out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. So yes, in that way, it is very old in internet days, certainly, but it's still very much growing. The top providers are Gmail, Outlook, Hotmail, which is Microsoft, Yahoo, Apple, iCloud. There's many other smaller email providers as well. As I mentioned, most people check it every day. And actually, it really is one of the most effective and personal tools we have in our tool belt, which I'll share with you in a minute, a little bit more about that. So despite rumors of its demise, revenue, so you might not be selling houses through email, but email is actually a very strong way for retailers, for some businesses to sell. And that revenue is growing and it's projected to keep growing to almost 18 billion annually by 2027. So hardly a dying channel. So, what are the pluses? So, you can communicate one to one. You can also personalize it. So, that's something you're not really able to do, like, let's say, in a social media environment where you're putting up a post and you don't really know who's going to see it. I mean, you can do some targeting if you advertise, but it's not one to one. It's very effective for nurturing retention. It's much cheaper than print direct mail. I know a lot of the builders are still using things like postcards. You have no idea if somebody read that, if they threw it away. Email, you're going to be able to see if actually somebody opened it, if it was delivered, if you're using the right technology. There's no algorithm, so they go straight to your inbox. Yes, there's spam, which we'll get into. You can target, you can take a list and you can say, well, I want to send an email to anyone who called me in the last year, assuming you have that information, you have their address. That's possible. You can do that. You have many ways to segment. You own your list if you take the time to build it, and it can be automated. And as I mentioned, it's very, very measurable. This was kind of an interesting stat. This is from MP Digital. So they asked businesses, what would you rather have, 1,000 social media followers or 1,000 emails? And while most people chose the social followers, when they actually did the analysis, email had a much greater return. So basically, what they recommend is if you have a social following, you want to try to get them to subscribe to your email list. So a few of the minuses are because it's relatively inexpensive, there's too much of it. I think we all feel this way. You look at your email inbox and it's exploding with the emails. It can be very overwhelming, and sometimes people stop paying attention to it. They may unsubscribe. There are spam filters out there, which we're going to get into a lot greater detail, but there is a chance that the email won't reach the person. There are some laws. We'll talk a little bit about that. GDPR, can spam. So you want to be aware of those. People now are more and more on mobile. So there's some stuff you have to really make sure that the email works on mobile, that things are displaying properly. And, now there's more and more of these programs where it's actually harder to gather email addresses. So, key takeaways: email is not a dinosaur, it's growing. It should be an important part of your marketing strategy. It actually has better ROI, and you do need to follow best practices and any regulations and laws. Okay, so let's talk a minute about your email strategy. I want to take a moment to just introduce this. This is inbound marketing. This is actually from a marketing automation company called HubSpot. And it outlines how people go about their research today. So let's say you're going to buy a car and you are interested in a Kia. So you start off probably, Googling some reviews, you look at some websites, you look maybe on social media, you saw a friend bought one. So you're a stranger, you're finding out your information, you're using keywords, maybe you're reading blogs, so then, you end up becoming a visitor to a website. And if that website is well done and smart, you have a lead magnet. So a lead magnet is something that, which we'll get into, you are going to give your email address in exchange for something of value. Then that person, it's a sales funnel. Let's say they keep going and they decide, oh, I'm going to now that I've read about this, I've read this lead magnet, I'm going to go to the dealer. Maybe I become a customer. And then hopefully, if you're lucky, you become a brand evangelist and you love your Kia, you tell all your friends about it, and you become, a promoter. So at this sort of midsection here, just high level, you want to be collecting emails. So getting people to give their email. So we'll talk about how you can go about doing that. So another high level framework, just internal versus external. So building your own list, which we just kind of went through. So having something of value, getting people to your website. So you have to create the visitors. So that you do through SEO, pay-per-click, social media. Somehow they're finding out about you. They're getting to your website. You're giving them something of value. Then you have their email address and you can then welcome them with a welcome email. You could do a drip campaign. So maybe 3 to 5 emails that explain who you are, your process. Maybe you have a special offer running. And then after that, if they don't become, a lead at the moment, then you can put them into a long-term nurture sequence, which is like a newsletter. So just keeping you in mind as the time goes by. External is about buying lists. You can do this from various brokers out there. We'll talk a little more about that. And then overall, you have an email database, you have fresh names coming in that you are collecting or possibly you're buying because people will age out and names become stale. So, just because you bought one list, that's not the end of it. You have to have this like ecosystem, and then you overall have an email strategy. So internal, we call that the house list. That is a term that big companies use. You may have heard it, and it just means those are your emails. So how do you build it? So I kind of went through this before, but you're driving traffic to your website. And again, there's a lot of content out there to tell you how to do this. Provide the lead magnet. So we're going to get into exactly some examples in a few slides. You should also let people know what your privacy policy is if you are going to continue to email them. By giving your email address, we will from time to time reach out to you. And if somebody doesn't want to do that, either they don't give the email or you could have an opt out. And then you want to nurture that name. So the lead magnet, let's get into this a little bit more. Basically, the way to think about a good lead magnet is solving the problem somebody has before. So let's say you're a home builder, and somebody is thinking of building a new house because they're not happy with where they live. They're not seeing anything in existing home inventory, but they don't really know, should I build an addition or should I build a brand new house. So maybe that would be a good lead magnet. Should I add on or should I build something brand new? Or maybe they just don't understand the financing. The financing is different, it's a little confusing. You could offer them a guide about financing your new build. Um, you know, they don't understand the process of building a modular home, let's say. And by the way, I think most people probably don't understand that process. So you want to give them some information. So you want to take this guy who's terribly frustrated and help him out with something like it's for free. Just give me your email and you can have it. So here's some examples. I love to provide real world examples. Again, I realize you may not be a home builder on this webinar, but you can kind of take these and tweak them. Think about the questions that your prospects are asking you, your clients have asked you. All of that can be great content. And then you want something that's, very nicely designed. And, here's a few ideas, ultimate home building checklist, 10 must-have questions, financing your new home, why building modular means building better. There's a lot of misconceptions in the modular home building space. So there's a wonderful opportunity to educate people and, bring them into your funnel. And, they're not ready to talk to a salesperson. They're not ready to do anything, but they're educating themselves. So if you can build that trust and bring that value to them, that's going to enhance your brand. And hopefully you are going to get a nice lead out of that you can continue communicating with. So as I mentioned, here's kind of a good sequence to think of. You should have a welcome email. So I've given you my email address. Welcome, Mary. We've been building since, 1980, and we're located here. We've built thousands of homes across, these states. Read this blog post about our process, watch this video of a customer testimonial, give somebody a really great picture of your company. And again, you can adapt this to your business if you're not in the building space. Then, you don't want to overwhelm people, but maybe 3 to 5 emails after that. I thought you'd like to see a few more customer testimonials or take a look at our gallery of homes. I'd like to invite you to our factory tour. It's complimentary. You can meet our expert builders, visit our model home. I mean, you can think of all the things that might be of interest to somebody who now has entered your world and is interested in what you do. And then, as I mentioned, the long-term nurture is a newsletter, which I will share an example. But before I do, just a quick note on outside lists. So as I mentioned, you can buy lists of names, and these are some of the ways they're typically broken down. You could say, let's say you're a modular manufacturer. I'm interested in home builders in Virginia and Tennessee and Kentucky, and sometimes you could even reach people over a certain revenue. Ensure they're opt-in. If you use a reputable list broker, you should be all set here. I do encourage that you look for people that are reputable and have, very solid reputations. The other thing is typically the best performance will come from the people who come to your website and give their email address. So here's a client case study. I changed the name of the client because we take confidentiality very seriously, but we implemented a newsletter for them. And the very first time it went out, they were able to resuscitate a prospect who had told them that he was going to build a home with another modular builder who said that he could do it cheaper. And he tried going down that path and didn't have a great experience, so he stopped. And then he got their newsletter and called them and said, you know what? I'm interested in picking back up this conversation. They ended up selling him a house. So that is a fantastic ROI. This is a builder in the Northeast. Homes, of course, are expensive. So if you can think of, that's a pretty nice jump in revenue for implementing a newsletter. And what can you put in your newsletter? You can have, if you should have a blog anyways, but You want to provide value. So it's okay to put if you're running an offer or something like that, but you don't want to make it overly promotional. This should just be top of mind, keeping the brand there, and really, providing useful information. So, key takeaways. The first thing you really need is a great website. That is so important because you want to, one, have a great website for a lot of different reasons, but two, you want somebody to give their email address. They're not likely going to do that if you have a poorly built website that isn't well designed and does not present your work in the best light. You need traffic going to it. So that's where SEO, pay-per-click, social media come in. And then you need a strong lead magnet. So somebody comes in, gives their name. You can then do the drip campaign, the welcome email, and then put them into a long-term nurture sequence. You could also take this diagram and drop in outside names that you've perhaps rented, and maybe you would bring them through something similar. Usually, most people, when they're renting names, have a very specific campaign in mind. But once they become one of your names, you can continue this process. Saying, how am I going to do this? This seems like a lot of work, and I'm not minimizing the work, but there is some good news. Technology. There's a lot of great email technologies out there. We love to say nobody knows you're a dog on the internet. You'll see very large companies sending out email, but just because you are a smaller business doesn't mean that you can't as well. So these are some of the technologies that we have used. Mailchimp and Constant Contact, um, those offer very reasonable pricing if you are just starting out with email. They even have some templates you can use, and you can grow with them up to a certain point. But they do offer some automation, they offer some scheduling. On the lower end of the pricing, they don't offer all of those features, but I think either one of those are a good technology to get started with. HubSpot is an example of a automation that is probably for a little bit larger company because it is more expensive. MailPoet is a WordPress plugin, and that's something we use because Builder Lead Marketing exclusively builds WordPress websites. But this is a very nice plugin that works quite well. And sometimes you might even be able to start for free. They definitely often offer free trials, so you can at least go in there and kind of see what it's all about. So automation is another way to reduce the work because you might be saying, how am I going to do this drip campaign? 3 to 5 emails even sounds like a lot. And frankly, it is a lot. If you were manually having to mail something out, that would be, potentially time consuming. But you can leverage templates, you can create this sequence, and you can also see reporting, which we'll get into later in the webinar. This is an example out of the technology we use. We have a proprietary technology that we use for some of our clients. And this is what we call a workflow. So we've even built in SMS texting. So you can, have somebody who enters your world, automate, get a welcome email. 2 days later, another email explaining what we offer, maybe a special promotion we're running. Do you want to meet with one of our salespeople? If you do, and then maybe you'll get a text as a reminder. We are able to do this, and it's all through automation. And again, you need an army of people to do what the technology can now do for you. So, key takeaway, these technologies exist, they help you automate. Some of them are very budget friendly, and it's a very attainable channel and once again, a very important one. So let's talk about what are you going to write. Here are a few tips and some content ideas. So we started off the webinar talking about our target audience. So you really want to think about them because that's going to set the tone of your email. Again, I think if you're dealing with older people, you're dealing with younger people, you're going to want to adjust that. Focus on the benefits. Instead of saying how you build energy efficient homes, maybe you tell them that you will save so much money and really be reducing your carbon emissions because we use such innovative energy efficiency techniques. So, you're kind of flipping it. It's subtle, but I think if you can put your target first, then that really can help you a lot. Strong design, don't overcrowd it. People don't want to read dense paragraphs. They don't want to read even a page of text that's just too much. If you are asking somebody to do something like join your factory tour, make sure you have a clear call to action. And you may want to create a sense of urgency. So we'll see an example of this in a little bit. And these are just a few ideas: inviting to a factory tour or an open house, special offers, pick your favorite. You can share some of your recent builds, your recent home plans, recent work. And if you have a blog, you could also be writing to people and saying, hey, I thought you'd enjoy this blog post. Some other tips and tricks. You know what? You don't really want to use like reply or like info at when you're sending your emails. It's very impersonal. So if you are going to use something that isn't a person, because that would be my first choice, people like to hear from other people, then you want something friendly like hello at XYZ, builder.com. Strong preview text. So your subject line and your preview text are what gets people to open. And if you don't put in any preview text, sometimes the email providers will just put in placeholder text and it won't be very compelling. Or sometimes you'll even get some weird, like tech, just fill in. So you really want to test out any email that you send. You're going to want to test it out across different emails. So send it to a Gmail, send it to a Yahoo, send it to an Outlook, and take a look at what people are seeing, because you will see different things depending on the email provider. Images are great, but if you use too many of them, it can be slow to load, and then sometimes people just delete the email. And the best times to send are Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, either early in the morning or right before lunch, because people tend to check their email first thing and at lunchtime. And then you want to, common sense, avoid any holidays, anything where people have kind of checked out and they're not really online. You can personalize email. That's one of the huge benefits of it, and you should. And anything important, you want it above the fold, so up top. And then, add your social icons, add ways for people to be able to connect with you. So Clayton, which is one of the largest home builders in the country, this is an example, a nice clean template they're using. Down below, they have a special offer where they have some urgency. You have to do it by the end of the summer. And this takes you actually to their website where you can see more of this home plan. There's like a short video. So again, this is a very large company, but frankly, this is attainable with much, much lower budgets than Clayton has. So key takeaways: write to your target, think of that persona, have a friendly reply, strong visuals, but not so many that it affects the load, compelling subject line and preview text. And if you have enough names, you can A/B test your subject line, see which one works better. You take a small sample, see which one works better, and then you email the rest of your list. So that can really help your open rates. Send when people are most likely to open and have some urgency and a compelling message. So spam, let's talk about spam, because it can be quite a big problem. So, email that goes to spam happens for a few reasons. So it could be the address you're sending it from. If you have a bad sender reputation, and you've been spamming people, or even inadvertently, maybe you emailed people like late at night or the middle of the night or something, sometimes they'll think it's spam, even if you were not meaning it to be spam. Subject line and email content, you want to stay away from certain terms, which we'll get into. And you could also just be accidentally marked as spam. So you might want to ask if somebody says, well, I didn't get the email, oh, can you take a look in your email, your junk folder? Because sometimes that happens. So ways to avoid it using merge tags. So that allows you to actually email the person. So it goes to Mary Anglade. It doesn't just go to my email address. Um, Authenticate your domain. So you have to actually verify your domain. That will help your sender reputation. If you haven't done that, that's a key one. You use a reputable platform like MailChimp, the one that I mentioned earlier. They send emails over their servers and they have built in certain requirements. When you create an email with them, you have to have a physical address. You have to have a way for somebody to unsubscribe. These are all part of our regulations. So if you don't have that, then the Gmails of the world are going to flag you as spam. The MailChimps, platforms that are established are going to help you with this. Test out your campaign. And honestly, if you look in your reporting and you see permanent error, sometimes that means you're getting spam. And the words you want to avoid are free. Don't put that in your subject line. Some stuff like you won't believe it, anything sensational, they may flag you as spam. So again, using a MailChimp or Constant Contact, they automatically unsubscribe people. You may also want to keep a suppression list. So this is different than just people who have unsubscribed. We worked with a nonprofit years ago, and they didn't want their VIPs, the people who had given them a lot of money, they didn't want them to get automated emails. So they had a suppression list and those people were on it. So you may have certain prospects or sensitive customers that you don't want getting anything automated. So you would put that on your suppression list. Um, and yeah, like it goes without saying, respect your sender's preferences. If they tell you, I don't want to hear from you anymore, make sure they get on the unsubscribe list if they didn't automatically put themselves on there or on your suppression list. Because if people start complaining about you, then you are going to get flagged. So, can spam is a law that I encourage you all to go and read the details. I've kind of covered some of this, there's a lot more to it. But basically, it is to prevent people from sending out misleading information. They want real businesses, not spammers. So, they require a physical address, an unsubscribe mechanism. You can't just go and use the white pages and randomly email everyone, somehow get their email addresses. So the fines can be very hefty. So it's important to understand the laws around email. If you're a bigger company or even if you're smaller and you have access to legal counsel, you should ask them, make sure that you're just doing everything right. There is a lot of great information online, and the government websites also have sources that will explain this in detail. This is very high level. So obviously you want to follow the law, follow the best practices that we've outlined. Don't use language that's going to trigger spam. Also, just test your emails. Make sure there's no typos, links are broken. Sometimes, that triggers spam filters because they think it's just a machine writing your emails, not a person. So make sure you take the care and take the time to really review what you're doing. And lastly, authenticate your domain and use reputable platforms. So our last section is about how do you measure it all? What are the key KPIs? So the ones you want to look for are around deliverability, bounce rate. So are your emails reaching who you intended them to? Are people opening them? Are people unsubscribing? And if you want people to go to your website, are they clicking through? So these are just some averages from some of the bigger platforms out there, around 20%. Our clients for their newsletters are seeing 40 to 45% open rates. So I think you can have much better open rates than this, but it's helpful to have a benchmark. If you're under this, I think you're probably doing something wrong and you're going to want to revisit what you're doing. This is the back end of MailChimp. This just shows you these were three different emails that went out. The bottom one is a test, so I would ignore that because it's artificially high for an open rate. But again, it tells you open rate, tells you clicks. You can actually get very granular and see which email addresses, which contacts opened your email, who clicked through. So sometimes that can be useful sales information. And it also can just tell you how interested somebody is in your content. So again, it's all good data to have. And for these key things, what do they mean and how do you improve them? If you are seeing a low deliverability, so that's a measure of how many emails actually made it. Um, First of all, you could be getting marked as spam. You don't want to send out mass emails all at once. If you have a very large list, you want to drip them out because that's another flag to the Gmails and the Outlooks of the world. Again, authenticate your domain and observe best practices. It could also mean you have a list problem. So maybe your names are old. If you have not emailed somebody in a very long time, so let's say you haven't had a newsletter or done email uh, in like a year or something, the first time you email, you are probably going to get a bunch back because people change jobs, they change emails. That's very common. And then what you need to do is remove those emails because you don't want to keep having those bad stats because it can affect your sender reputation. And that's true with bounce rate. So that's, a hard bounce is could not get through, and that's likely somebody just doesn't have that email anymore. A soft bounce might mean maybe their inbox is full or for some other reason it didn't come through, and they'll try it a couple times and it will make it through. So those are measured a little bit differently. Open rate, how many people are opening? So that is directly affected by your subject line and your preview text. So whether or not somebody opens your email, those are the two things. And then click through is, again, if you have a link in your email or a call to action, sign up for our tour, you will be able to see who clicked, how many people clicked. And then unsubscribes, we have found working with, home building industry is that generally is a very small number, but if you send out too many emails, you'll see your open rate starts to decline because you're just talking to people too much. So we watch both very carefully. And of course, if somebody unsubscribes by law, you should not email them again. Make sure if you're using a reputable email platform, that'll take care of it for you. If for some reason you switch to a new one, you got to make sure your unsubscribe list comes with you. And if you want to see if email is bringing traffic to your site, you need Google Analytics. Here's the link. Any developer or agency can help put that on there for you. Typically, we don't see huge traffic, certainly in the home building arena from email, but it's also just interesting to see if people are, using email as a means to get to your website. So key takeaways, you really want to measure all this. It will prevent you from, perhaps over emailing, alienating your customer database. Look at your KPIs. We always strive to improve, like what can we do? Should we test some new subject lines, test some new preview text? All those things are really important. And make sure your list is up to date. You want to do what we call list hygiene, remove the old names. And yeah, and if you're getting spam, again, make sure you've authenticated your domain, and you followed all the best practices. So we're wrapping up. And I guess, one question I always like to ask at the end of these webinars is think about if you were that home builder that they sent out one email and they ended up getting a new deal out of it. What would that mean to you if you had that, especially on an ongoing basis? This is a very powerful mechanism. So, think to yourself, if I could really grow, accelerate the growth of my business with digital marketing, which is an extremely efficient and relatively inexpensive way to get the word out and to compete, what would that mean to me in terms of if I'm making more money, if my company's making more money. We have greater awareness. We're building more homes. It's all personal. So that's just a personal question. And would you like some help? We always wrap up with this. We do offer a limited number of sessions every month for a complimentary website and online marketing review. We'll look at your website, how much traffic you're getting. We'll look at email if you're doing email. We'll take a look at your emails. How are you being found online? Are you showing up in the search results? Tell us, a couple of your competitors. We'll look at their websites. We'll look at how much traffic they're getting. We have technology to do that. We'll look at social media and how well you've set yourself up for conversion. And you can schedule that again by just scanning that QR code with your phone's camera. You can call us or you can go to our website or email me directly. I would be very happy to set up some time with you. And lastly, I want to thank everyone for coming to today's webinar. Please do follow us on social media for upcoming ones. I want to thank the Modular Home Builders Association and the Home Builder and Remodelers Association of Fairfield County for getting the word out about this webinar. And again, it's been a great pleasure. Have a great rest of your day and be sure to stay in touch. Hope to see you at the next one.